There are programs out there designed to help us accomplish all sorts of different things. There are transformation programs, bodybuilding and powerlifting programs. There are sport-specific programs designed to help us excel at our desired sport. But what about longevity? What would be the best training plan to help us have a long lifespan? Actually, let me adjust that a little bit. A long health span. Now, we can't guarantee how long we're going to live, but we can improve the odds. But for most of us, we don't just want to be alive. We want to live, for there's quite the difference between being alive and truly living. This is where health span starts to come in. Health span is basically the length of our lives that we live, free from the negative effects of serious or chronic illness. And it's in the last part of our lives that our health span starts to go. And the bulk of the reason for this is the things we end up dying of are starting to rob us of a quality of life that we desire. So in order to improve our health span, we first need to understand what it is we tend to die of. Now, the number one and number two killer of us is cardiovascular disease and cancer, followed by neurodegenerative diseases and accidents. Now, we're going to talk about those first three in a minute, but I want to break accidents down a bit more. It breaks down into automotive, accidental poisonings, and falls. Now, the odds of dying in a fall isn't as high as dying in a car accident, but it does lend itself well to the realization that if our bones and our mobility have gotten so bad that we die just falling, we have certainly lost a lot of our quality of life. So what kind of movements are critical to quality of life? Well, most of these movements are really basic movements. But remember, we want to be able to comfortably do these movements into our 70s and 80s. And the first one is simply sitting down and getting back up again. Easy, right? Well, what if we took away the chair and you have to get up off the floor? Still easy? Have you ever heard of the sit test? That's where we cross our feet, sit down on the floor, and then stand back up again. Now, if either when we sit down or stand up, we have a hand, a knee, or the side of our thigh touch the floor, then we lose a point. It's been shown to be a key indicator of longevity. And if we're having any trouble with it now, it's only going to get worse if we don't address it. Now, the next key movement is the ability to pick something up off the floor. It could be a piece of paper, maybe a child, or a box, which ties in well with the following one. Be able to lift something up overhead, like maybe a box into a closet or a pantry shelf. After that, we have twisting at the waist. It's a movement we do so often, we don't even think about it, but it needs to be maintained as we age. Walking, climbing stairs, and running. I group all three of these together because it's basically our ability to move our bodies from point A to point B on our own power. The next two movements are pushing and pulling movements, which, much like twisting, we do so often we don't even think about them. Now, all of these movements require that we have strength, mobility, and balance. And usually, if we maintain our strength and mobility, our balance will remain. Let's go back to cardiovascular disease, cancer, and neurodegenerative diseases. Now, I did a video on how to protect our mental functions as we age, so I'll direct you towards that when it comes to diseases like Alzheimer's. Now, we're going to take a look at a study that was done on strength training and mortality. It was a 14-year-long study that involved over 80,000 people over the age of 30. Now, the focus of this study was how strength training affects overall health and longevity. Now, what they found is that strength training brought about a 31% reduction in cancer mortality rates, as well as a 23% reduction in overall causes of premature death. It's key here to note that you don't need a gym to get the benefits. They found that bodyweight training was just as effective at reducing mortality as weight training. Now, cardiovascular training is important not only for disease prevention, but also quality of life. Not so much that we need to be able to run a marathon, but we might need to run up a flight of stairs, run away from an attacker, or chase a bus that's just leaving the bus stop. So if I was to put together a longevity program, I would have at least 2 days of HIIT training along with a couple days of strength and mobility work. The remaining 3 days, I would call them activity days, where you want at least 30 minutes of steady activity in each one of those days. Because really, the best way to live a long, active life is to keep working out while having fun. This is Lawrence from Fit and 50. We'll talk to you again in the next one.